In this video, we are going to show you the summary of A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. So let's start. A Tale of Two Cities is one of Charles Dickens' greatest historical novels. Set against the backdrop of the French Revolution, the story moves between London and Paris, exploring themes of sacrifice, justice, revenge, resurrection, and redemption. Through the lives of several interconnected characters, Dickens shows how personal love and loyalty exist alongside the violence and chaos of one of history's most dramatic revolutions. The novel is both a moving family story and a powerful account of how hatred and revenge can consume individuals and entire nations. The story begins in 1775 with the famous line, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times," introducing a world filled with both hope and despair. Jerry Cruncher, a messenger for Tellson's Bank in London, is sent to deliver a mysterious message to Jarvis Lorry, an elderly banker. The message simply says, "Recalled to life." Jarvis Lorry travels to Dover, where he meets a young Frenchwoman named Lucie Manette. Lorry tells her astonishing news. Her father, Dr. Alexander Manette, whom she believed had died many years earlier, is actually alive. He has spent 18 years imprisoned in the Bastille, one of France's most feared prisons, and has only recently been released. Lorry and Lucie travel to Paris to rescue Dr. Manette. They find him living in a small attic room above the wine shop owned by Ernest and Madame Defarge. Once a respected physician, Dr. Manette has become mentally broken after nearly 2 decades of solitary imprisonment. He spends his days making shoes, the occupation that helped him survive prison. At first, he barely recognizes Lucie, but her kindness and affection slowly awaken his memories. She lovingly brings him back to England, where he gradually begins rebuilding his life. Several years later, Charles Darnay, a young French nobleman living in England, is arrested on charges of treason against Britain. He is accused of passing military secrets to France and America. The evidence against him appears overwhelming, and he faces possible execution. During the trial, a clever lawyer named Stryver and his brilliant but troubled assistant, Sidney Carton, defend Darnay. Carton notices that he closely resembles Darnay in appearance. This remarkable resemblance creates enough doubt about the witness's identification, leading to Darnay's acquittal. After the trial, Charles Darnay becomes a close friend of Dr. Manette and Lucie. Lucie admires Darnay's kindness, honesty, and gentle nature. Meanwhile, Sidney Carton also falls deeply in love with Lucie. Carton is an intelligent man with great potential, but he wastes his life through excessive drinking, laziness, and self-hatred. He believes he has ruined every opportunity for happiness. One evening, Carton confesses his love to Lucie. He tells her that although he expects nothing in return, her kindness has reminded him that goodness still exists in the world. He promises that he would willingly sacrifice his life if it could bring happiness to her or those she loves. Lucie is touched by his sincerity, though she cannot return his romantic feelings. Charles Darnay eventually asks Dr. Manette for permission to marry Lucie. Before the wedding, Charles privately reveals his true identity to the doctor. He is actually Charles Evrémonde, a member of the powerful French aristocratic family whose cruelty toward ordinary people earned widespread hatred throughout France. Dr. Manette is deeply shaken by this revelation, but keeps the secret. Despite his initial distress, he allows the marriage to proceed. Charles and Lucie marry happily and soon have a daughter. Dr. Manette becomes a loving grandfather, and the family enjoys several peaceful years in England. Meanwhile, conditions in France continue to worsen. The common people suffer from poverty, hunger, heavy taxation, and constant oppression by the aristocracy. Among the most cruel noble families were the Evrémondes. Charles Darnay had long rejected his family's wealth and privileges because he could not accept their injustice. He voluntarily gave up his inheritance and chose to build an honest life in England. The revolution finally erupts. Angry crowds storm the Bastille, symbolizing the collapse of royal authority. Ernest Defarge joins the revolution enthusiastically, while his wife, Madame Defarge, becomes one of its most determined leaders. She constantly knits while secretly recording the names of those she believes deserve death. Her calm appearance hides an intense desire for revenge. As revolutionary violence spreads across France, many aristocrats are arrested and executed by the guillotine. Charles Darnay learns that one of his former servants, Gabelais, has been imprisoned simply for serving the Evremond family. Feeling morally responsible, Darnay decides to travel secretly to France to rescue him. Upon arriving in Paris, Darnay is immediately arrested as an emigrant aristocrat. Despite explaining that he renounced his title years earlier, revolutionary authorities imprison him. News of his arrest reaches England, prompting Lucie, Dr. Manette, and Jarvis Lorry to travel to Paris in hopes of saving him. Dr. Manette's past imprisonment makes him a respected figure among the revolutionaries. Because he suffered under the old regime, many revolutionaries consider him a hero. Using this influence, he succeeds in securing Darnay's temporary release. However, Darnay's freedom is short-lived. He's arrested again after new accusations emerge. This time, the charges come from Madame Defarge, Ernest Defarge, and an unexpected source, Dr. Manette himself, though without his knowledge. During Darnay's trial, an old letter written by Dr. Manette while imprisoned is discovered inside the Bastille. In the letter, the doctor explains why he was imprisoned many years earlier. Years before the novel begins, Dr. Manette was summoned to treat two dying peasants. He learned that the Evremond brothers had abused and destroyed an innocent farming family. One brother assaulted a young woman, while the other murdered her brother when he tried to defend her. Dr. Manette attempted to report these crimes, but the powerful Evremond family used its influence to imprison him without trial for 18 years. The court concludes that Charles Darnay, as a member of the Evremond family, must pay for his ancestors' crimes. Although he personally committed no wrongdoing, he is sentenced to death. Lucie and her family are devastated. Dr. Manette desperately tries to save his son-in-law, but realizes his influence is no longer enough. The revolutionary government has become increasingly ruthless, and executions occur daily. Meanwhile, Sidney Carton arrives in Paris. Though he has always loved Lucie silently, he has remained distant from her happiness. Seeing that Darnay is doomed, Carton remembers the promise he once made, that he would willingly give his life for Lucie or anyone she loved. Carton devises a daring plan. Because he closely resembles Charles Darnay, he secretly enters Darnay's prison cell. After drugging Darnay until he loses consciousness, Carton exchanges clothes with Darnay. Friends secretly carry the unconscious Darnay out of prison while everyone believes he is Carton. Sidney Carton remains behind, fully aware that he will be executed in Darnay's place. He asks Jarvis Lorry to ensure that Lucie, Darnay, Dr. Manette, and their daughter leave France immediately. As Carton waits for execution, he comforts a frightened young seamstress who has also been condemned to die. She realizes he is not the man he pretends to be, but admires his extraordinary courage. Holding her hand, Carton helps her face death peacefully. At the guillotine, Sidney Carton calmly accepts his fate. In his final moments, he imagines the future. He sees Lucie and Charles living happily together, raising their children in peace. He imagines that one of their sons will bear his name in gratitude for his sacrifice. Through this vision, Carton finally finds the purpose and redemption that had always been missing from his life. Madame Defarge, still determined to destroy Lucie's family, travels to their lodging intending to arrest Lucie and her daughter. There, she confronts Miss Pross, Lucie's loyal servant. The two women struggle violently, and Madame Defarge is accidentally killed when her own pistol fires. Although Miss Pross survives, the loud gunshot permanently damages her hearing. Meanwhile, Charles Darnay, Lucie, Dr. Manette, Jarvis Lorry, and little Lucie successfully escaped France. They leave behind the violence and terror of the Revolution, carrying with them the memory of Sidney Carton's incredible sacrifice. The novel concludes with Carton's famous final thoughts, expressing complete peace and fulfillment. Having spent much of his life believing himself worthless, he finally achieves greatness through a selfless act of love. His willingness to die so that others may live transforms him from a hopeless man into the true hero of the story. In the end, A Tale of Two Cities is the story of love, sacrifice, revenge, and redemption, set during one of history's most turbulent periods. Through the lives of Charles Darnay, Lucie Manette, Dr. Manette, Madame Defarge, and especially Sidney Carton, Charles Dickens shows that hatred only creates more suffering, while compassion and self-sacrifice possess the power to redeem even the most broken life. The novel remains one of the greatest classics of English literature because of its unforgettable characters, emotional depth, and timeless message that the greatest act of heroism is giving oneself for the happiness of others.